Dear friends, welcome to Think BRICS. Today, we are glad to host Matthew Ehret, Editor-in-Chief of the Canadian Patriot Review. Matt,
Hello.
thank you, Matt, for your time and thank you for joining us today.
It's always a pleasure to join you, Anastasia.
Thank you. Well, Matt, straight to the point. Don't lose time. Our channel's analytics show that Canada is the third most popular country. It's interesting that Canadians often leave comments like, I wish Canada would join BRICS, or I wish Canada was in BRICS. It's a pretty noticeable trend, not just a one off. Well, in my opinion, with current leadership, Canada won't be welcomed in BRICS, actually. But if Canada were to announce its intention to join BRICS today, it would be greeted very positively by the population. What do you think? Is it better to be 51st state of the USA or join BRICS?
That's a great first question. And what I can say to that is that I think that Canada would need to resolve some of the demons of its past that continue to exert influence over the structures of power and decision making. And if Canada were to be admitted to the membership of the BRICS countries, which is a very big and growing movement of nations which seek to have a different type of relationship to political, economic, cultural policies than that which we have seen destroy the Western economies over the past, especially 70 years, then there would be, I think, a need to have a period of training the country to, for the first time, learn how to play properly with others. I think Canada should be able to take advantage of some of the wonderful large-scale economic development projects, which include such things as the Polar Silk Road, as the various facets of the Belt and Road Initiative, which are really increasing the quality of life, standards of living, and increasing the national productive powers of labor of nations all around the world, which I think it would benefit the people, it would benefit industry. But we shouldn't. I think it's just like the case of Macron when he applied to attend a BRICS conference and was trying to get close to the BRICS. France really lost much of its sovereignty after the ouster of Charles de Gaulle in 1969, and since then has become increasingly a tool of a very dishonest and I would say sociopathic oligarchic, like financier oligarchy, which uses the power of the nation state of France as a weapon to undermine that which is good. So France should be permitted to benefit, as Canada should, but it should not be permitted to have a seat at the decision-making table for an extended period, at least 5 to 10 years. And I would say something similar should apply to Canada, which desperately requires that type of initiative. Now, I was the author of in 2018, a report titled "Why Canada Must Join the New Silk Road," which I was surprised that it received some positive traction in 2019, 2020. And at this point, I've issued a new booklet called "Canada's Potential Eurasian Future," featuring all of the different projects that could involve Arctic development, large-scale economic development to bring us into harmony with Russia, with China, and other nations seeking to have a future. I personally I'm not sure in my experience if the patriots, which I tend to interface with, are ready to properly understand that Russia and China are our allies and not our enemies. Many people have been confused by a lot of CIA, CSIS propaganda, which has convinced us that our primary nemesis is especially China. So I don't know if the consensus is there currently to join such things as the BRICS. There is more favoritism amongst especially Albertans and conservative Canadians to join as a 51st state. However, even there, my question is, what fully is controlling the USA? Is that something we want to join? I'm not even sure at this point what exactly is influencing the Donald Trump administration. If it was an authentic Republican revival, which I hope it is, I sincerely hope it is, of the spirit of William McKinley, of Abraham Lincoln, and John F. Kennedy, if that's really what is being revived, then I would say sure. It would be good for Canada and healthy and positive even for Russia and China for Canada to participate in that type of thing. If, however, what is animating the Trump administration is something much more dangerous, transhumanist, Delphic, imperial, Trump just put out some messaging expressing his openness to joining the British Commonwealth of Nations. That's something he did not 24 hours ago. If that's the case, then no, that would be a terrible idea and something destructive ultimately to the long-term relationships, even with Russia, which Trump seems to sincerely wish to have a positive relationship with. Even that would be possibly a bad thing.
I see. So there is no answer, we may say.
It all depends on certain factors that remain to be seen what they are, yeah, unfortunately.
Well, you know that this morning, while preparing myself for a conversation with you, I read that Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is set to ask the Governor General to dissolve Parliament and formally launch an election campaign. For us that are living a bit far from Canada, it's difficult to understand what's going on. Can you explain how it works in Canada? I mean, the Prime Minister nomination, how the government is formed, why Mark Carney became a Prime Minister and not that lady Chrystia Freeland. Could you tell us in a few words, who are those people?
Yeah, right. It's a weird government. It's a weird anytime you look at a Commonwealth, a British Commonwealth government and how it's organized, you'll find a lot of strange attributes. Canada being no exception. And you're right. In a more normal type of government, there would be a clearer chain of command. If, let's say, the president or the prime minister is impeached or steps down, in a Republican form of government, a deputy, like a vice president, or in this case, the deputy prime minister, would immediately take the job. There's a chain of command. There's a hierarchy. In Canada, it is designed to be much more ambiguous. It's a system where, as you pointed out, Carney was merely appointed. Justin Trudeau announced that he would step down over 6 weeks ago, and people believe that it would immediately happen. That's not true. He simply prorogued Parliament. That simply means he stopped the government. Mm-hmm. So he announced that at some point there would be a leadership convention, at which point he would allow himself to be replaced by whomever his party votes for, which became a short list of 4 people, of which Mark Carney was one of them. Chrystia Freeland was another one. Now, in this case, even if there was a better, more clear chain of command, it would not be better if it were Chrystia Freeland. However, it would be more rational as a system. In this case, the party voted for Mark Carney on March 9th. Carney has alluded to the probability that he will call for a general election to try to validate in the minds of the popular masses his position. But it isn't even necessary, honestly. Like, I think the only legal mandate is once every 5 years there should be an election. But before that, you could have a vote of no confidence from, if you have a minority government and the opposing parties team up, they can vote no confidence, which triggers an election. There's a number of things that could trigger elections. The government could just randomly call for an election, as has already happened, with no other reason than to simply solidify their power grip, with no need to wait for terms. So in this case, I think Carney's going to go for it. He's going to take the risk and open up for an election, but he still has to ask permission to the Governor General. And you're like, well, who the hell is the Governor General, and why is he asking permission?
This was my another question. Who is this? Who is this person?
Well, this is the case. You have most of the Canadian system of controls are occupied by people who are not elected, but rather built into the deep state structures, which are ingrained within the constitutional fabric of the society, of which we have the Privy Council, an unelected body of appointed figures, some private, some public figures. We had members of the Bronfman family, a major mafia a drug family that were members of the Privy Council, including Charles Bronfman, a very close associate with Mayor Lansky. We've had people who, like Maurice Strong, the godfather of the Great Reset and the Green New Deal, who was a Privy Councillor. But then also you have every member of the Canadian government and opposition party who also have to be sworn into Privy Council in order, and with that comes oaths of secrecy to keep secret that which is told in Privy Council and to pay obedience to the monarch and their heirs forever into perpetuity as a servant, a good servant must, which is part of the Privy Council oath of office, which Carney, as well as Justin Trudeau and every prime minister has pledged as an oath of allegiance. You have lieutenant governors as the hand of the British Crown inside of each province, which play the role of the governor general on the federal level. But in the provinces, you have a lieutenant governor, which is unelected, and they have to give royal assent. So anytime a legislation is to become law, it must be given royal assent by the hand of the Crown. So Canada is not really a real country in that sense. And I'm a Canadian. I'm a Canadian Patriot. That's the name of my magazine. That's the name of my website. But I've had to accept over the years the consequences of my research, which has led me to the conclusion that we are a very unfinished country, which is masquerading as a complete thing, and it's sincerely not.
Well, but the person of the new prime minister, actually, I was not very interested in his background, but today I read some information that he was the ex-Bank of England governor, the first foreigner ever since nominated to be the Bank of England's governor, head of the Bank of England. So before he was the head of Canadian Bank, Bank of Canada. So very experienced economist. And that lady, Chrystia Freeland, she was a finance minister. So when she left her ministry chair, she was expected to be the next prime minister. Am I correct? But then inside the party, that melting point, that something happened. Is this a crisis?
No, I wrote a paper in 2020 called Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney's Great Reset or something like that. It was a 2020 paper, and in it I make the point that Mark Carney is being set up to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. And part of my logic, which I've been putting out in interviews, is that I simply just look at what has he said that he intends. And if you look at Chrystia, her value to the empire as a Rhodes Scholar, I mean, she and Carney were both Oxford students. She was a Rhodes Scholar. He was not, although they were, I think, part of the same package from a very early age. Her value primarily has been due to her affiliations through George Soros and through her work at Reuters, as well as, she played an early role as a...
Stop. Oh, censor.